Hey everyone, welcome back. Today, we're jumping right into a really fascinating case study in modern media analysis and late-night commentary. In this explainer, we're going to see exactly how late-night panels today are seamlessly blending hard, data-driven politics with literally the most bizarre viral news imaginable. It's a totally new format. It swings wildly from serious electoral strategy one minute to completely absurd local news the next. And the broadcast we're analyzing today, well, it perfectly encapsulates that whiplash. It is honestly a masterclass in how modern audiences consume information and entertainment all at exactly the same time. We have got a lot of ground to cover, and watching how this panel navigates these shifts is pretty incredible.
Okay, let's run through the agenda for this explainer real quick. We're starting with the 2028 Democratic field, then looking at the one-handed driver, moving into a judge's chambers scandal, covering some inappropriate airline etiquette, and finally wrapping things up with late-night TV rivalries. Let's dive right in. Section 1, the 2028 Democratic field, an early look at the polls. So the broadcast opened right out of the gate with a deeply critical look at the Democratic Party's future, focusing specifically on who might actually take the reins in 2028. The panel had this long discussion about how the party is allegedly struggling to find a fresh, breakthrough candidate, and they leaned heavily on recent early polling numbers to make that case. They didn't just mention this in passing either. They treated it as a massive structural issue within the party's current strategy. When you break down the numbers they showed, Pete Buttigieg comes in at 18%, and Gavin Newsom is right behind at 16%. They're leading a very tight pack, followed by AOC at 11% and Josh Shapiro and Kamala Harris tied at 10%. But here is the absolute key takeaway. No single candidate is breaking that 20% mark. The panel used this specific spread to argue that there's a massive enthusiasm gap right now. Because nobody is running away with a clear majority or even a dominant plurality, the hosts argued the party is currently fragmented and just lacks a unified vision for the future.
To really drive this point home, panelist Charlie Hurt highlighted a very specific hyperlocal statistic that sparked a ton of debate. He pointed out that incumbent Karen Bass is polling at just 26% in her re-election bid. And remember, she's endorsed by Governor Gavin Newsom and operating in heavily Democratic California. For Hurt, this was literally the most important number of the night. If you're a voter or just someone watching the media landscape, the panel is saying this is the metric you need to watch. It suggests that frustration with tangible local issues might be completely overriding traditional party lines.
Now, the panel actually connected this whole issue-focused shift directly back to Donald Trump. Charlie Hurt argued that Trump's biggest legacy in modern elections isn't necessarily his specific policies, but how he completely dismantled traditional political decorum. As he put it, he took a blowtorch to all the niceties and all the norms of politics, and because he did that, we're talking about ideas. So the argument here is that by burning down the polite norms, elections have been forced to become hyper-focused on ideas and issues, rather than just polite personalities. According to the panel, this disruption is exactly why the 2016 and 2024 cycles became the most issue-oriented elections of our lifetime.
Okay, so that was a pretty heavy, intense political breakdown. But the beauty of this late-night format is how incredibly fast it can pivot. So consider this next part our palate cleanser. We're stepping away from the hard political data and crossing right over into the realm of bizarre, viral news. Because sometimes the absolute most fascinating things captured on government cameras aren't serious political scandals at all, but just pure, unfiltered human absurdity.
Section 2, the one-handed driver, a body cam viral moment. The panel abruptly shifted gears to this strange local news story out of Florida that recently went viral. It started as just a routine traffic stop for distracted driving, but it quickly went completely off the rails when the police officer realized the driver he was accusing of holding a cell phone was in fact missing her right hand.
Let me set the scene for you based on the body cam footage they reviewed. The officer approaches the window, right? And he is completely 100% convinced he saw the driver holding a phone in her right hand. The driver very calmly informs him that she actually does not have a right hand. The officer, clearly flustered, just digs his heels in and repeatedly asks versions of this exact question. Did you or not have your phone on your hand? It is a perfectly awkward standoff captured right there on video.
And then comes the crucial point, the driver's response. When the officer keeps pressing her on whether she had the phone in her hand, she replies with absolute deadpan calm, hand to God. The panel universally praised this moment. They were just marveling at her natural wit. They pointed out that under the intense pressure of a traffic stop, delivering a perfectly ironic punchline like hand to God about a missing appendage is just absolute comedic brilliance.
What's wild about this broadcast, though, is how one single viral video spawned 3 completely different philosophical reactions from the panel. Michael Malice took this sort of anarchist approach. He used the bumbling cop as a prime example of what happens when the government holds a monopoly on security with zero accountability. Kat Timpf, on the other hand, completely ignored the politics and just praised the driver's stellar comedic timing. Meanwhile, Charlie Hurt zoomed out, arguing that body cams are amazing because they not only exonerate police in bad situations, but they also provide late-night television with this endless supply of incredible unintentional comedy. So the takeaway? A single, absurd local video instantly becomes a Rorschach test, reflecting whatever worldview the commentator already brings to the table.
Section 3. A Judge's Chamber Scandal, Uncovered by AI. Keeping right along with the theme of bizarre news, the panel jumped into our next segment. But what elevates this story from just a simple workplace tabloid piece into a fascinating modern discussion is the incredible technology that was used to actually uncover it.
So the facts of the story, as reported by the panel, are definitely a bit shocking. Federal Judge Eleanor Ross, who is an Obama appointee, was officially reprimanded for having loud, passionate intercourse with a police officer right there in her chambers during the workday. The panel obviously had a field day with the absurdity of the situation. They jokingly suggested that this is exactly why society needs AI judges. We'll just quietly hum away and work 24/7 without causing these massive, scandalous HR nightmares.
But honestly, the true modern superpower here is how she was unmasked. The court originally went out of its way to keep the judge's identity completely anonymous in their reprimand. But a reporter bypassed all of that courtroom anonymity in seconds, simply by inputting the document and asking an AI to cross-reference random footnotes against district cases. Boom! Judge Eleanor Ross revealed. It completely proves that today, the right prompt is way more dangerous than a leaked document. As Charlie Hurt pointed out, AI isn't just some narrow generative tool anymore. It is essentially all assembled information in history. The true modern superpower is just knowing how to ask it the right query.
Section 4. Inappropriate Airline Etiquette, the No Touching Rule. For this next one, the broadcast tackled a topic we can all probably relate to, the absolute misery of modern commercial air travel. The panel debated a recent Washington Post article that highlighted a really sinister trend. Apparently, passengers are inappropriately poking, tapping, and touching flight attendants just to get their attention. It's gotten so bad that flight attendants are actually having to wear no-touching pins right on their uniforms. The panel was completely, sharply divided on who is actually to blame for this. On one side, you had Kat Timpf vehemently defending the flight attendants. She argued that modern passengers are just disgusting, overly familiar, and treat the airplane like a, quote, greyhound in the sky. On the flip side, panelist Jamie argued that the airline industry itself has just lost all of its former glamour. He basically said that because the glamour is dead and the service is practically non-existent, frustrated passengers are practically forced to physically poke the staff just to get a drink service they missed while they were sleeping. If you want to perfectly capture the deeply cynical vibe of the panel on this, look no further than Michael Malice. He questioned the very premise of even wanting to touch airline staff in the first place, sarcastically referring to them as butlers for poor people. It's really striking, vivid quote, and it perfectly captures the panel's overarching sentiment here. Flying today is just a miserable, deeply unglamorous experience for everyone involved, whether you're the staff or the passenger.
Section 5. Late-Night TV Rivalries, the End of an Era. For our final segment today, the panel actually turned the lens inward. They focused entirely on media commentary and the shifting, highly competitive dynamics of late-night television itself.
The panel got into how Stephen Colbert, during his final episode of The Late Show, actually made this really surprising acknowledgement of Greg Gutfeld's broadcast. For a show that felt they had historically been totally ignored by the mainstream late-night establishment, the panel reacted with absolute, unabashed gloating. They viewed this acknowledgement as a massive victory. They explicitly stated that they were knocking them off one by one. And, why does this matter to us? Because it shows the curtain finally dropping. Late-night television is no longer pretending to be this unified front of polite entertainment. It is an open, ideological ratings war. And that really brings us to our final thought. We've seen how seamlessly this one broadcast weaves from deep data-heavy dives into Democratic polling, right into laughing at a one-handed driver to AI courtroom scandals and airline etiquette. As late-night television turns everything, from crucial election data to bizarre local news, into the exact same flavor of entertainment, we really have to ask, is this format keeping us brilliantly informed, or is it just keeping us comfortably numb? Thanks so much for unpacking this explainer with me today, and we'll catch you next time.